the federal program called CREP to install buffers, and his programming requires that a landowner do at least 3 acres of planting. So Frank's name only appears if they have more than 3 acres of planting identified. It also works based on areas of interest. So if the landowner indicates they're interested in ag production, the Conservation District Ag Tech automatically appears on their report. So it's a pretty cool mechanism that we've used to connect landowners with more information about what they could be doing and what their impact would be. I also do a lot of university engagement, specifically with Susquehanna and Bloomsburg universities. We have a stream monitoring component to make sure that we've actually identified the right places with the mapping analysis. So they have 9 different sites where they're doing in-stream monitoring of fish, bugs, water chemistry, pretty much anything you can monitor, sediment types, upstream and downstream of some restoration projects to help make sure that the mapping is identifying what we wanted it to. We've also, we have a lot of interns that work out of my office, so we've been working with them to figure out ways to get students more engaged in conservation projects. So they've done a lot of tabling for us at Ag Progress Days and the Grange Fair, engaging landowners in these conversations, doing tree plantings, you know, just getting sort of engaged with the community. Sorry, excuse me. We've also started a new project that I know a number of you have actually participated in called the Live Stake Collaborative. And this is an effort, it's a collective impact project aiming to install more trees in the right places using volunteers. And so in the spring of this year, we partnered with Susquehanna University, the Maryland Conservancy, and Pennsylvania DCNR to give away 8,000 free trees. And so this project really aimed to work with live stakes, which are these sections of branches. So you can actually take a section of a branch cutting from a lot of different species that'll grow in like wetland areas, strip all of the side branches off of that and push it in the ground, and it'll grow a whole new tree. So it's pretty cool. There are a lot of species that actually do this. We took 8,000 of these cuttings this spring with Susquehanna University students, local volunteers from the Lynn Conservancy, Buffalo Creek Watershed Alliance, a lot of different organizations participating. And you can see we would go out and cut these branches. We actually have a large walk-in cooler at the university that we stored all of these in. And over the past 2 weeks, they've been going out to restoration projects. We actually did one at Marilyn Murphy's house on Sunday, which was pretty awesome. So you can see, I have a picture here. This is a planting we did last March, and that's a photo from May. So you can see that they start to grow pretty quickly. And within 6 months' time, they can be about this tall. So it's a really awesome way to engage the community in these projects and generate a lot of excitement, as well as some additional landowners to participate in this work. We're also trying to look at sort of what I call the flip strategy. We did a lot with restoration. Can you identify parcels for conservation as well? So looking at places, we did a workshop in Lycoming County last year, and this is the Albert Farm. They have an intact forest riparian buffer running along this entire stream segment. And we did a schematic to compare that to the upstream property, which is actually owned by his uncle, which didn't have any forest riparian buffer. And one of the ideas that came out of this was, well, it's kind of cool that we can look at which ones do and don't have it. Could we also prioritize for places where buffers are already filtering a lot of nutrients and sediment? So we're working on this now. We just got some grant funding from the Hamer Foundation out of State College to run a conservation opportunity analysis, looking at where we can put conservation easements to protect water quality in perpetuity. And so just to close here, a lot of these local water quality projects that we've been working on are providing not only benefits to communities here in central Pennsylvania, they're also benefiting water quality throughout the Chesapeake Bay. And these tree plantings are a really important way that we can use this technology to integrate into a long-term strategy to actually clean up Pennsylvania's waterways. In terms of next steps, we're looking to expand geographies. We have been trying to fundraise to include Union, Snyder, Northumberland, and Montour counties into this analysis. We're hoping to continue accelerating restoration by fundraising to do kind of whole farm restoration in our current geography. Excuse me. And then we're looking to explore additional opportunities. Are there other management practices that we can actually identify through mapping? So that's all I have. Do we have a minute or two for questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay, questions over there. Behind me first.
Do you have any sort of programs like open to the public, like sponsor a tree, much like Heifer does, you sponsor a beehive or that kind of thing?
We don't, no. But that's something that we could start. I mean, do you think that's something people would be interested in doing?
Sure,
Yeah.
especially those interested in conservation.
Yeah, yeah, that could be a really cool.
And I do have a second question.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of impact the fracking water has had?
So that's pretty far outside of what I actually do. My specialty is sort of agricultural pollution and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
While I move over here, what kind of trees are particularly good?
For the live staking?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of the different willow species, black willow's pretty good. You can use pussy willow will work. The dogwoods, gray dogwood, red osier dogwood, silky dogwood, river birch, sycamore. A lot of the shrubbier species, like buttonbush, are good. Highbush blueberry would actually work. Elderberry. A lot of fruit and nut producing species will do it too.
I live along Penn's Creek, and we have a road that runs, I think the buffer zone's only 10 feet
Mm-hmm.
in front of the road. On the other side, would you plant buffer on the other side of the road to help it? Is that what you do then?
Yeah, you mean if you can only plant so much on one side?
Yeah, would you just expand it to the other side?
Yeah, I think that's a good sort of trade-off strategy. I mean, there are a lot of barriers. We come into people who have narrow barnyards all the time, and it's always better to have sort of a wider buffer. Research from Stroudwater Research Center suggests like the wider you go, like beyond 35 feet, you're really getting a lot of filtering of the more fine sediments. But you know, there's sort of the reality factor here too. If you can only do 10 feet on one side, it's always better to go wider on the other. I mean, it's not helping the water quality specifically on this side, but sort of a trade-off.
Is there a minimum, or, I mean, if you have a relatively thin, narrow barrier, or is there a minimum you need to have? I mean, 35 feet is recommended. Will 5 feet help? Will 10 feet help?
I mean, anything you can do is really going to help. Even providing stability on the banks and stuff, you're still getting some of that filtering capacity from just having trees along the bank. A lot of the width stuff really comes into play when you're looking at funding mechanisms for the buffer. A lot of federal programming, they'll start at 35 feet. If you can go to 50 feet, then an additional state cost share kicks in. Like some of the federal programming, you can actually get payments for installing a buffer, so the landowner can get sort of incentive bonuses there.
And second question, do you work with non-agriculture, like residential areas that are used?
We do, yes. Yeah, so the main focus for the water quality aspect is in agriculture, but a lot of the partners we work with, like the conservation districts and people who actually do the buffer installation, will work with anybody.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about why a farmer would engage in this? You said they get interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could even talk